Good game day morning, everyone. Yes, it's game day. It's game day, Mark.
Woo-hoo! It's game day. We made it, Doug. We made it.
We haven't slept in 4 days. We're not going to sleep for 7 months, but here we go. It's game day. Doug Farrar, editor of the USA Today Sports Media Group. Mark Schofield, our 5-tool guy. And we're ready for some football. Going to preview, did the week by week preview podcast last year. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it all season. We kind of went halfway in last year and, it was good and people liked it. So what the hell? Let's do it again.
Why not?
Want to start with, it's been a good week. I got to talk to Matt Ryan, Chris Harris, and Tony Romo. Got to watch the game with Matt Ryan and Chris Harris. Chris Harris is like the smartest defensive back I've ever talked to. And I've talked to Richard Sherman, so that's a pretty high bar. He's right up there. All three of those people, Matt Ryan on offense, Chris Harris on defense, and Tony Romo in general, said the same thing. And it really caught my ear. And I wanted to, before we get into the games, I want to talk about this, about making everything look the same before the snap on both sides of the ball from play to play. I know Doug Peterson talked about this in the Eagles Super Bowl year. It's a big part of what Sean McVay does with his heavy personnel and reduced splits. And then you kind of spread everything out. I know the Bucs like to go heavy personnel, and then they'll make, they'll throw passes out wide. It's like they run heavy, but they run spread, which is kind of a continuation of what I know in the Patriots game-winning drive against the Rams in Super Bowl 53, those two Gronk catches, they were running heavy, but kind of running spread. So yeah. I'm interested in your thoughts about how this has developed, because I think before it was like, we want to show you all these crazy formations pre-snap. Now it's kind of the inverse, and you want everything to look the same on offense and on defense. And this is a big Brandon Staley thing on defense. It's like too high, too high, too high. And then God knows what happens after the snap.
Yeah. And it's all about manipulating that decision-making window on both sides of the ball for the quarterback, for the players of the secondary. It's all about, because everything that teams were doing before this were spreading you out, exotic formations and stuff like that. You're trying to expand that decision-making window. You like that. You bring up that Patriots drive in Super Bowl 53, running empty out of 22 personnel, which is what they did. And they had it brilliant, done really all year.
Utterly brilliant.
And they ran Haas Juke like 4 or 3 straight times. It was the same exact play. Everything was the same pre-snap, but the Rams kind of had to figure out, are they really going to run it again? Like, are they really going to do this again? And that's kind of the sort of evolution of it, where you're trying to force people to react at the snap. It's kind of like the motion for information, motion for impact, stuff like that, right? You're trying to make people have to think right when the play begins, rather than know when the play begins, this is what I've got. And so that's what you're seeing on offense. That's what you're seeing on defense. These teams that, we've talked about this, everybody's written about it, the trend to show too high, to force teams to run the ball, but then do something different after the snap. So, quarterback gets to the line of scrimmage, sees too high, maybe he checks the run. If he doesn't, and they stick with pass or whatever, then you spin the safeties, you buzz a safety down, you do something different that he's not expecting, and he has to recalibrate his thoughts as the play is unfolding. He doesn't have the luxury of, I know exactly what's going to happen when the ball is in my hands, and then I can make my reads as a result. And so, that's kind of the trend on both sides of the ball, to sort of to manipulate, I'd say, that decision-making window once the play begins.
I think also, if you start too high, well, as we've said before, NFL defenses have run quarters 3 times as much. It's increased 300% over the last 3 seasons, and I would imagine that it's going to keep going. So you run quarters. Well, it's not country quarters like you see in the Big 12. This is like, it could be quarters cut, it could be quarters lock, it could be quarters, all kinds of things, and then all of a sudden, well, now it's quarter half, and that brings up that one thing I found interesting in talking to Chris Harris, and we'll bring this up in the Chargers preview. He said that he and Derwin James will alternate playing the Jalen Ramsey slot, the star role under Brandon Staley. But Chris said it depends on the package. So Staley already has, his the funnel goes this way. He's inverting the pyramid, and here we go. So it's just, I found it really interesting, and I think it's why, and I'm glad you brought up motion, because I know people are sick to death of me talking about it. I just yammer on. but motion, it's not even for information, it's motion to displace.
Yeah,
because if you've got too high over and over, and then you don't really have any indicator of what the defense is doing until after the snap, it really behooves you even more to move a guy or move 3 guys or move 10 guys. Matt Canada might move 12 guys.
Yeah.
Just to get some sort of idea. Okay, there's my indicator. We moved here and that guy did this, so now I know I can go here.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing about like motion and play action, like you can't just do it for the sake of doing it. Like you can't just say, look, we're going to run motion on this play, or we're going to hand the ball off on inside zone, so the motion really adds nothing. Or, we're going to use play action, but it's 3rd and 19 and we're doing it out of 10 personnel. Like, again, you're not doing anything with it. You have to have a method to the madness. Teams, I've got a Patriots playbook by my feet, and it literally has a notation in there about motion. Like, we do this to identify coverage and to identify and verify blitzes. Like, you have to have a method to do it. If you're going to run play action, go out of heavy personnel, like do it out of 12, do it out of 13, do it on 2nd and 4, not 3rd and 19. So again, it's that whole, like, what are you telling the defense pre-snap? It's 2nd and 4, we're at 13 personnel and our quarterback's under center. What are you thinking if you're a defense? Or what are you thinking if you're a Mike linebacker? They're probably going to run the football, right? Like, everything's telling you run, then that's when you go play action. So you have to have sort of like a method to all of this, just doing it for the sake of doing it. And then sort of when you combine motion for information, motion for impact, like you've got the indicators and you're either moving defensive players at the snap, or you're putting a player into a position to succeed, like you're motioning them into a stack or into a bunch or a double wing, so you're getting them a free release. Like, those are the kind of things that which really work, not just sending a guy in motion just to say you did it.
I mean, Shanahan, I remember the first motion piece I did, they motioned Kittle to get him away from Bobby Wagner. Yeah. And I think it was Jordan Brooks, who was then a rookie, and, predictable happened. Kittle ate his lunch, and it's motion. Because like Washington does this, I think, the most of any team. I think the Patriots do it too, where the receiver goes in motion, you follow, okay, it's man, and then they play zone.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, because defense is adjust.
Motion for man or zone, motion for information. I remember talking to Dan Orlovsky about this last year, and he said, we're kind of past that. What it is motion to displace. And I think that's really that. And then, it's spread out of heavy, as we've been talking about. I wanted to start with a few of the trends I think we've both been seeing, but the making everything look the same pre-snap is really where the NFL is going. And it seems like everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
So speaking of motion to displace, let's start off with Cowboys at Buccaneers, the game tonight. We just put up a really good piece from you on the Buccaneers and pre-snap motion and play action, how Bruce Arians saw the light after the bye, after that Saints game where Brady was I've never seen Brady that off. And you, as a 20-year Brady scholar, I bet you say the same thing.
No, I mean, I wrote, it was the worst I've ever seen him.
Brady is going to be the oldest non-kicker ever to start week 1, 44 years. And he's I was talking to Romo last night. Like, do you realize that Tom Brady is 3 years older than you and he's still playing? Like, wow.
Tom Brady is 7 months younger than me, Doug.
Yeah, it's just freaky.
It's painful.
Explain to us why Tom Brady could be even better in 2021, because I agree with you completely on this.
It's 3 reasons. And first, hat tip Matt Waldman, who put this little light bulb in my mind earlier this summer. One, he's completely healthy. He had the MCL injury last year, which required surgery. So he's completely healthy. And not that Tom Brady is somebody that needs to be athletic, running around, but he's completely healthy. So that's one. 2, he knows the offense now. And we wrote about this last year. He talked about it this spring, this summer, like around Thanksgiving time, their bye week, the loss to the Chiefs, that second Saints game. He wasn't comfortable yet calling the offense. He had been in the same system for 20 years. Now he's learning something new. It was going to take some time. Like, he lived, breathed that offense for 20 years. Now he's learning something new. So he knows the offense now. Number 3, everybody's on the same page. Byron Leftwich, their offensive coordinator, who's brilliant, told the media that last week. The receivers are on the same page. So much of what is done in today's NFL, regardless of offensive system or philosophy, adjustments, conversions, post becomes go becomes post based on coverage in the secondary, but it requires quarterback and receiver to be on the same page. That's why a lot of spun safety looks, you might think, oh, it's to confuse the quarterback. If you can, great, but you might confuse a receiver. And then you have what we saw in week 1, where Brady's expected Evans to run the post. He sits down on a curl. He throws a post to a post safety who's waiting for it for an interception. I mean, now the guys are on the same page.
He threw 2 interceptions in that game on quick outs. I don't know if he's thrown 2 interceptions on quick outs in like the last 10 years in New England.
Yeah. And so that's why he might be better this year. He's healthy. He knows the offense, and everybody's on the same page going into the season as opposed to coming out of the week 13 bye. I really think, look, they're bringing out 22 starters back. The NFC is I don't want to say it's a wide open conference, but I think the AFC is deeper. You put this together, I think Tampa Bay is going to have a great year.
And into this abattoir comes the Dallas Cowboys defense. It'll
be better.
Well, Dan Quinn likes to run single high stuff.
Yeah.
Tom Brady against single high coverage in 2020, 199 of 324 for 2,496 yards, 1,346 air yards, 28 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and a pass rating of 110.4. We have discussed on the pod, and you've written about why Brady carves up cover 3. I think cover 1 is the same. I think there are 2 quarterbacks, and we're going to add a don't play single high to the don't play man if you can't play man, because we're going to bring that back too, because people are still dumb about that. There are 2 quarterbacks that you just don't want to play single high against, and Brady's one of them. Why does he carve this up to the degree that he does?
Well, because a lot of it is his ability to manipulate defenders at all levels of the field. I mean, take, for example, single high. You've got 2 help players in that defensive structure. The underneath linebacker, that's your inside low hole help. And then the post safety is your deep help to the inside. So corners, they'll usually play with outside leverage to try to force stuff that way. But when you can move that underneath, hole defender to one side and then throw to the other, like one of my favorite examples of it was from years ago when Brady was in New England, where it was empty, single high, and you would, as that underneath defender, probably slide to the 3 side, right? The 3 receiver side, because that's probably their biggest threat. Brady moves him away from that and still throws the slant from Edelman as the inside receiver to the trips. Like when you can move players like that with your eyes, get somebody to do what they're exactly not supposed to do, that's how you have success against that defensive structure. Brady's so good at moving that underneath defender, moving that deep post safety, single high, whether it's cover 1, cover 3, like he's just got that ability over years of experience to do things and to do the kinds of things, the manipulation that matters to get people to do what they exactly should not be doing.
I think the Cowboys defense will be better than it was last year because it can't be any worse. I mean, Mike Nolan came in and just overcomplicated everything. And Dan, I know Dan pretty well. It's not simple, but it allows you to play fast and free and kind of loose. And but the Cowboys were not good in single high coverage last year. The one thing they did pretty well is dime. They allowed 42 completions and 73 attempts for 453 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Decent sample size. Against dime coverage in 2020, Brady threw 7 touchdown passes and had 6 interceptions. Quinn should be dialing up as much time as dime as possible. Forget it. Screw the run. It's like the Steelers. I think it was Super Bowl 9. The defensive, I think it was George Perlis went up to Joe Green. Screw the pass, play or screw the run, play pass. Yeah. That's what they have to do. If you can get, I don't know what a 9 defensive back package would be, but that's
right.
Like a pound, the English pound. By the way, nice kid. Are your cats still watching soccer?
The cats are still watching soccer. This is a Newcastle United 2021-22 training jersey. You know that meme of the Joker, put it on the clown makeup in the mirror? That's going to be me every Saturday as I get ready for a Newcastle game. They go to Man U this weekend for the return of Ronaldo. It's going to be a disaster.
Cool.
Super fun.
On the other side of the ball, Bucs are not out of the woods against Dallas receivers as long as Dak is in there. In weeks 1 through 5 last season, the Cowboys ranked first in 11 personnel and first in positive play rate with 11 personnel. That's in part because Mike McCarthy doesn't know how to call anything else, and only 11 personnel will fit on the bar napkin that he calls a playbook. But when you have CD Lamb, Amari Cooper, and Michael Gallup, you want them out there as much as possible. And I think CD Lamb is going to be the guy who just mosses everybody this year. I get this is about to explode feeling.
Yeah,
Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear.
Yep.
Bucs have Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean, who is underrated, Ross Cockrell, who can be good, D. Delaney, who made by all preseason team. But they need that front to work. Now, the front is going to work because Zach Martin is out and Vita Vea is going to go Godzilla on, Zeke will not get anything. And Zeke is kind of, I don't know. Anyway, this bears watching down the stretch. When the Buccaneers play teams with better offensive lines who can handle that front to whatever degree, and it's, Carlton Davis one-on-one. I'm not saying Carlton Davis is bad. I think Todd Bowles put him in some unfortunate situations. Hello, Tyreek Hill, and 3 touchdowns in the first half. But I don't know if they have an eraser. And obviously they won the Super Bowl without an eraser last year for a number of reasons. I just think it bears watching, especially in the playoffs where we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it does bear watching, but I do think that it's going to take a extremely talented offensive line to sort of handle what they have, like Browns level talent. So there aren't that many teams that have that kind of offensive line.
That said, the Bucs led the league in interceptions against 11 personnel with 17. So there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we're talking about play action and motion. Cowboys gave up 20 touchdowns and had 1 interception against play action last year. Against pre-snap motion, 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. So yeah. On to Sunday, Eagles at Falcons. Welcome to the Arthur Smith offense. Heavy 12 personnel, 2 and 3 tight ends, Hunter Henry and Kyle Pitts. Yeah. Yep. A lot of moving parts, play action and motion. When I talked to Matt Ryan, I brought up that he is one of the few, probably the only quarterback in the NFL over the last 5 years who's less efficient and productive with pre-snap motion than without. And that even goes back to the Shanahan 2016 MVP year. And he said, well, with Arthur Smith has had him sort of buy in. Dirk Cutter and all the guys before it was sort of he said, I think he was being diplomatic. He said they had a different approach. I don't think Arthur Smith is going to have Matt Ryan running boot like Shanahan did.
Right.
But I think you're going to see a lot more. And this goes to both sides of the field for the Falcons. And by the way, the Falcons went 4-12 last year. They were 17th overall in DVOA. They lost a lot of really, really horribly agonizing games. And unless you're the Chargers, I don't know if that goes from year to year, of course, with the Falcons. Maybe it does. So I think the offense will be multiple. The one play that you pointed out, the Julio route where he showed post and then went corner, I asked him, because Calvin Ridley, by the way, was the best deep receiver in the NFL last year. And Ryan totally trusts Calvin Ridley, but I asked him who else could run what they call kind of the Julio route. And he paused and said, well, maybe Calvin could run it. I said, what about Kyle Pitts? And said, Kyle's not there yet. So they're going to have to eliminate things from their playbook that only Julio Jones can do because Julio Jones is an alien.
Right.
I think it allows Ryan to be a distributor, which he's great at, point guard, which he's great at. Deep arm is not quite what it used to be. Good fit there. And on defense, you have Dean Pease, who Dean was blitzing all over the place in the preseason.
Yep.
Dean has he has run out of Fs. He has no Fs to give. You talk about confusion for the opposing quarterback with spun coverages and pre-snap, post-snap. Here comes Jalen Hurts. I don't know.
It's going to be a lot for Hurts to handle. I mean, Pease has shown an affinity to blitz. He showed in the preseason the ability to confuse quarterbacks, to take away their initial read, to make them have to rethink things. Again, that decision-making window that we talked about. And then the Atlanta offense, I think it's going to be okay to good. I mean, we love Kyle Pitts. Calvin Ridley is a fantastic receiver. I think that sort of distributor role is perfect for Matt Ryan. You know, Ryan mentioned Russell Gage as a guy he wants to get the ball to more. Yeah. So I mean, Atlanta is a team worth keeping an eye on. I know, there's always discussion about teams that could kind of surprise. Atlanta might be that team in the NFC.
I remember watching tape before the Falcons Chiefs game last year, and I said, this is going to be closer than people think. And I
remember that. Yeah.
Watching the Falcons all year going, they're better than this.
Yeah.
And, I'm not going to disparage the coaching, but I think things, I'm not saying playoffs, but I don't think they're going to win 4 games.
No, I don't think they'll be that bad.
I think they're on the upswing. A team I do not think is on the upswing. And for reasons that everyone talks about the Steelers offense, Big Ben, maybe the last year, arm isn't there, totally new offensive line, blah, blah, blah. I get all that. I think we know what the Steelers offense is and is not. And with Najee Harris, we saw this in the preseason. He's a sustainer. He's not an explosive play waiting to happen. That's just not who he is. So they're not going to get explosive plays out of the run game. They're not going to get many explosive plays out of the passing game. I've said on the pod that this was the best defense in the NFL last year because they had the right personnel all over the place and everything went right. Any regression in that, they go to like top 5 out of 1. The offense has to make up for the explosive plays they give up by creating explosive plays of their own. Because to me, in the NFL today, your ability to create and stop explosive plays, that is the most important thing in the NFL, the way it's constructed now. And I don't think this has anything to do with the TJ Watt contract thing. They'll figure that out because they have to. But they lost Mike Hilton, top 5 slot defender, to the Bengals in free agency. They cut Steven Nelson, who played more snaps outside for them than anyone else last year in a salary cap move, and he plays for the Eagles now. They traded for Aguilar Witherspoon, who was benched often in San Francisco for performance issues. And Witherspoon was sliding down Seattle's cornerback depth chart, which I don't think even exists at this point. Joe Hayden isn't what he used to be. And this secondary that was a strength is a problem. And here come the Bills. Steelers at Bills. And here's Brian Daboll running empty and, stuff all over the place. And, we have high regard for Mike Tomlin. We think the Steelers defense is always going to be good. I'm kind of looking at this like sorry, Neil Coulomb. This could be a blowout. This could get ugly. This could have people looking at the Steelers like, uh-oh.
Yeah, it certainly could. And, one of the problems that the Steelers have this year is you get the Browns twice, you get the Ravens twice. Like the AFC North is going to be a battle anyway. Everybody's talking about regression for Josh Allen. I think the bigger regression candidate is, like you said, that Steelers defense this year. The TJ Watt situation, yes, it's going to work itself out, but it might not work itself out in time for Sunday, and that's going to be a problem. So yeah, this is one of those games that could get out of control quickly.
And on the other side of the ball, Greg Rousseau and Carlos Basham, Bills drafted a pass rush.
Yep.
Rousseau was great in the preseason, and he's one of those, you can move all over the place. He'll get as many pressures out of like one shade as he does from the edge. Basham is more of an edge guy. I think they've had concerns about his conditioning in the preseason, so we'll see how that goes. But, we talk about too high. Is there a better too high combo than Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer?
Hard to find one.
This is one reason the Bills are my Super Bowl pick. Yeah. So my thoughts about Steelers Bills. I think this could get out of hand pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Speaking of out of hand, when the football goes out of your hands, Vikings at Bengals. I'll just say it. The ball is different because it is bigger. It doesn't have the white stripes on the side, so you can't see the ball coming from the tip point. So you actually have to look for the strings on the ball at the top, which is hard to see because the whole ball is brown and you have the 6 strings that are white. But for the most part, you just have to get used to it and find out what I am comfortable with catching. That is Jamar Chase, rookie receiver for the Bengals, reuniting with Joe Burrow, dropped a ton of passes in the preseason. And we have said, I think we both agree, Jamar Chase is a lot of things. He's not a separator. He's not a guy who's going to create open space with second level speed, short area acceleration. He's a contested catch guy. What is the most important thing to do if you're a contested catch guy, Mark?
Catch the football, Doug.
Catch the football. And I know, everyone talks about, well, Jerry Rice dropped a bunch of passes earlier in his career. Well, okay, but are we concerned? I'm a little concerned.
I think we're a little concerned now. And Deontay Lee at Pro Football Focus tweeted out, this sounds like somebody trying to rationalize having the yips. Like, I'm sure he trained with, like Deontay says, I'm sure he trained with an NFL ball as
you
he was
would
getting
hope
ready for
so.
the draft. Like, might there be a little bit of adjustment? Yeah, but that should have been sorted out by now. So I do think we're concerned. I think generally drops are noisy. They're a bit of a noisy statistic. But when it lingers like this, and now it seems like Chase is in his head about it, that's a situation that causes some concern.
I guess the only good news is that Chase is going up against a Vikings secondary that outside of Harrison Smith, that cornerback group.
That's some questions. Yep.
Mike Zimmer, as I said before, if Pete Carroll isn't the best secondary coach of his generation, it's because either Mike Tomlin or Mike Zimmer is. So for Zimmer to have these cap issues where he can't really get good cornerbacks that's got to be rough for him. Just 49ers at Lions last season, and we can throw this out to a point because Matt Patricia's out, but the Lions ranked second in frequency of middle of the field closed coverage. They ranked 31st in positive play rate allowed because they were the Lions. But given Jimmy Garoppolo's issues with MOFC, which you have talked about especially, this bears watching. Aaron Glenn, who won the Saint, he was the Saints secondary coach for the last 5 seasons. He's now the Lions DC. He's coming from a defense that played MOFC just 44% of the time, which ranked 30th in the league. I don't know what that means. I'm trying to find interesting ways to spin the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo is starting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be more of a referendum on where Lance is or is not in his development than anything else. I mean, that's all I can really sort of think of. I mean, maybe Shanahan just doesn't quite feel completely comfortable with him handling the entire playbook. So he's going to give him the package of 15 players or whatever. So we'll still see Lance against the Lions at some point. 4 plays, a drive, 3 drives, whatever. But
well, they could do that whole alternating QB counter bash thing. And, if the Raiders couldn't handle it, the freaking Lions are just going to, heads exploding all over the place.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's more a referendum on where Lance is. I'm not worried about it. I still think that this is an offense that Lance will be able to run extremely well early this season. I still believe that, but maybe Shanahan's just not there yet.
Yeah. Jared Goff, massive regression with the Rams and all the things that were supposed to make him great. Play action, motion, heavy personnel, like all the staples of the McVay offense. And he just fell off several cliffs. And if you're regressing under McVay, I mean, no offense to Anthony Lynn, but
yeah,
really. So this is the unremarkable quarterbacks game.
Yep.
I think Kyler Murray is a remarkable quarterback. He's not getting a lot of help.
No, he's not. We've talked about this a ton.
Arizona's passing game against Tennessee's pass defense, which is both ways, although we'll talk about why Tennessee's pass defense, you can sort of almost kind of take them seriously to a point. But in 2020, Arizona ranked dead last in plays with pre-snap motion with just 317. It was 29% of their offensive snaps. They ranked 5th in Sports Info Solutions positive play rate when they did use it. And I know in air raid, the whole thing is to just keep your receivers set. You don't want to move them. But A, you're dominant with motion and you don't use it. And B, DeAndre Hopkins is over here with his feet in cement, Soprano style. I just, we did our season predictions earlier this week and we had first coach fired. And I think I could be Cliff. If he doesn't get out of his Chip Kelly hole, this could go south very quickly because you got the Seahawks, you got the Rams, 49ers coming back from one of the worst injury seasons ever. That stuff doesn't tend to extend itself over multiple years unless you're the Eagles. And they have no cornerbacks. Like it's Byron Murphy and who else? Cliff had, and the interesting thing is in the second half of 2019, Cliff started to switch it up, change the personnel, did more stuff pre-snap. And then he came back last year and just said, nope, I'm going back to, whatever. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either. Now he did sort of down the stretch, move Hopkins around more. You saw him aligned on the other side of the formation.
More
we
as
talked
opposed
about
to
it.
What?
More as opposed to not at all. So it was something. If he's learned anew, then there's hope. But if he hasn't learned the lessons of the past, you're doomed to repeat it. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
22 was the number of touchdowns the Titans allowed in man coverage, which tied them with the Lions for the league's worst mark in that department. So they are the clubhouse leaders and don't play man if you can't play man for the 2021 season. Lions had 4 interceptions in man coverage and the Titans had just 1. Tennessee's EPA per play allowed in man coverage last year was 0.19, tied with the Jaguars and the Raiders for the league's third worst mark, and only the Browns allowed a higher positive play rate than Tennessee's 50.4. However, Christian Fulton allowed an opponent passer rating of 39.6 in man coverages preseason. Caleb Farley, the rookie, gave up an OPR of 58.3, which is good. And Elijah Molden, who we both love, allowed an OPR of 77.1 in the slot, and the slot was a real disaster for them last year. And the Titans, you bring Julio in. Titans ran a bunch against stacked boxes 43% of the time, which I think was second in the league. You face a ton of heavy defense. Cardinals have no cornerbacks. This, all of a sudden you got AJ Brown and Julio to deal with, Godzilla 1 and Godzilla 2. Yikes.
Yeah, I almost wonder if this game ends up being like a surprise shootout, between two teams that are going up against defenses that have had struggles. We sometimes see in week one teams be able to put up points in bunches. Kind of a surprise, comes out of nowhere. You look at if Cliff does figure it out, that Titans defense, maybe they can't handle what Cliff does. You look at when the Titans have the football, heavy personnel packages, play action shot plays off condensed formations and things like that, get Julio and AJ Brown matched up against those corners. Maybe this is a surprise shootout.
And I don't think it'll be that different. The offense that are Downing. Arthur Smith was the tight ends coach, then became the OC. Todd Downing was the tight ends coach, became the OC. They have a type. So
yeah.
Just saying. Yeah, secondary, it's like Buda Baker, who's not a cover guy, and who knows at safety. Byron Murphy, who improved a little bit last year, but still, and who knows at cornerback.
Yep.
Seahawks at Colts. Carson Wentz is now projected to be the week 1 starter. And all you hear, the foot thing and the COVID thing and whatever, what you hear is that Frank Reich is going to get him throwing in rhythm, short drops. And I went back and looked at what Carson Wentz did on 0 to 3 step drops last year for the Eagles. No quarterback last season had a worse adjusted net yards per attempt on throws of 0 to 3 step drops, and Wentz's 3.6. In comparison, Dak Prescott and Aaron Rodgers tied with the league lead at 8.3. No quarterback had more short drop interceptions than he had 14 interceptions on 0 to 3 step drops. Drew Lock finished second with 13. Now Brady had 11, but he's Tom Brady, so who cares? This whole Frank Reich is going to fix him thing. I mean, this is very, very far from automatic.
It is. And I was somebody that was kind of leading the charge that Frank Reich can fix him. I think last year was a complete collapse from Wentz. It wasn't regression. It was collapse. He was making the same mistakes he was making in North Dakota State. I'm inclined, and I know it's easy to do for the sake of argument, I'm almost inclined to like just throw last year out. It was that bad, but you can't. You have to look at it.
Frank Reich is already intimating that he's butting heads with Carson because Carson wants to go YOLO. And so that's kind of already, which was a thing in Philadelphia too.
Yeah. I mean, the entire Carson Wentz summer has really sort of moved my position on it. I mean, between some of the stuff that we're seeing from him, the injury, the availability, Howie Roseman's comment this week that, look, we loved Carson. We had 4 playoff games and we needed the backup and all. Like, it's starting to seem like this is just not going to work
out. Seattle's offense, we can expect more motion, more sweeps, more condensed formations, more heavy personnel. Shane Waldron, who was under McVay, we haven't seen the entire Seattle offense, but I think we've seen enough of it in the preseason. It's going to be, Wilson with DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, rookie D. Eskridge, who I think will be great in the slot. And that's good because I have absolutely no idea what this defense is going to look like. It's, Trey Flowers and I don't know who at cornerback. They got Jamal Adams and, Quandre Diggs at safety, still defining the pass rush. It's just so weird to see a Pete Carroll team where it's not just the offense, but the passing game that's in control. It's like, cats and dogs, etc.
These are strange times.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. My powered speaker just decided to lose power. So
that's perfect timing.
Yeah, nice. Colts defense, a lot of too high. Matt Eberflus, probably going to be a head coach sooner than later. It's a good defense, but I'd say the matchup is, well, it'll be interesting to see how they use Jamal Adams this year, because last year it was heavy blitz. They didn't have him up in too high packages with Diggs a lot. When he was up there, I mean, he's a better deep cover guy than people say he is. He just doesn't do it a lot.
Yeah.
And he blitzed. They didn't replace him a lot. So it was like automatically you just throw to wherever Jamal Adams was before he started playing, and that's where the open guy is going to be.
Yeah.
They got to fix that, or they're going to make Carson Wentz look good, and that's not something you want to do.
Not the way you want to start the season.
Chargers at Washington. And Chris Harris told me that Justin Herbert's going to be even better this year. He said in practice, it's just insane how good he looks. He led the NFL in touchdown passes on 3rd and 6. Mitchell Schwartz had a great thread, former Chiefs right tackle, about how important it is for quarterbacks to really excel in production and efficiency on 3rd and 6 or more. So, well, cool. I agree with that. So I went and looked. Herbert led the NFL in touchdown passes on 3rd and 6 or more, completing 21 such passes on 46 attempts for 456 yards, 340 air yards, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a passer rating of 101.5. Again, he's a rookie.
Yep.
Tremendously efficient under pressure, and again, all more advanced coverage. Like all the things that usually send a rookie quarterback back to the drawing board, everything. He was just, and I don't know if we talked about this enough, because it's a bigger deal than I think we think it is for a rookie to come in and just do that. When was the last time?
I don't, and it was really the performance under pressure that caught my eye, and that's what's going to be critical this week, because you've got that Washington defensive front with Chase Young and all the talent they have up front. His ability to handle pressure, like he was putting up numbers better than a lot of veterans, a lot of good veteran quarterbacks last year. He's one of the best when he was handling pressure last year in the pocket. And we saw it against Tampa Bay, like the game that sort of put him on the map, that 3 or 4 touchdown performance. I forget which one. That was a game he was pressured the most last year, Doug, and he handled it so well. So I think Chris Harris is right. I mean, this isn't a situation where a teammate's just pumping up his guy. He's going to be better because the tough stuff he figured out already.
Harris also said that was the problem in Denver, is we could never find a quarterback. Ouch.
Yikes.
Against New Orleans, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was week 5.
Yeah.
And then he had 3 touchdowns, 1 pick against Tampa Bay. So, and this was against good defenses too.
Yeah.
I think. So Washington didn't play a lot of man last year. I think you're going to see more of it this year. They bring in William Jackson. They're kind of figuring their linebacker stuff out. Could be the best defense in the NFL. That's not a sleeper thing anymore. We're all talking about it. I'm interested in your thoughts on Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Scott Turner offense. Antonio Gibson, in my opinion, could be a top 10 back. Terry McLaurin, we love him. Jarrett Patterson out of Buffalo, looked great this preseason. I think their offense is cool, but this could be a stern test because, again, you're facing the entire Brandon Staley package, and that is never an easy app.
Yeah, and the interesting thing for me in thinking about Washington this year is the things that have made Ryan Fitzpatrick a lovable figure in this game. His aggression, his willingness to take chances, the YOLO throws, the high variance. That's not what they want from their quarterback this year. With that defense and the offensive talent, they want him to be sort of the Matt Ryan distributor player we just talked about earlier. Will Ryan Fitzpatrick do that? Will he adjust it in that way? If he does, I think this team wins the division going away. If he doesn't, I don't know. I mean, Emery.
Well, I think the answer to that, it will he or won't he? I think the answer is yes. He'll do that 90% of the time, and then he'll have a 6 interception game, and then he'll bounce back. That's
it. I mean, and that could be it. But Emery Hunt, who we love, CBS Sports, he had a video clip this morning where he was like, I spent all weekend trying to find the Ryan Fitzpatrick playoff tape. I haven't found it yet. And it's not because Game Pass is down. It hasn't happened yet. So those of us who are all buying in, like me, on Fitzpatrick in Washington and Washington's chances, we have to, keep that in mind.
I'm not buying in on Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm buying in on not Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, I think that's the better way to put it. Their quarterback situation was so bad last
by far
year.
The two worst air yard quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm not going to say a bad thing about Alex Smith because, you know, we all know what he went through just to come back into the NFL. Haskins came in and just, you know, I don't know how you don't take it seriously, but he didn't take it seriously. And like in all the, you know, let's see my notes here. Rashawn Slater versus Chase Young. Woof.
That's going to be
that was the game that put Rashawn Slater on the map. Northwestern against Ohio State, where he handled Chase Young. He was a grown ass man against Chase Young. And we talked about, you know, can a defensive rookie of the year still develop? And I think with Chase Young, yeah, he can. You know, hand moves, technique. He would just blow people away with his athleticism in his rookie season, and then he kind of disappear because the technique wasn't quite there. I think he takes the leap in year 2, but Slater, this kid is something else. He's going to be special. And oh, by the way, Penny Sewell is Jared Goff's front side protector in the aforementioned game.
Yeah.
Sewell did not look good at right tackle. Some guys can make that adjustment. Some guys can't. We'll see. Jets at Panthers, the Sam Darnold Bowl. Let's start with Phil Snow's defense. He's in year 2 now. Last season, the Panthers, and I know you're really, and you wrote a lot about the Cardinals doing all the, you know, the weird 0-3-8.
Yeah, 0-6-5.
Yeah. Panthers led the league in 4-1-6 snaps, ranked second in 3-2-6, probably behind the Cardinals. They were about average and positive play rate allowed in each case, which indicates they're still trying to match scheme to personnel, which I think is true. But this is a defense that Aaron Rodgers called strange last year. They fooled Aaron Rodgers.
Yep. That's not easy to do.
That's different.
Yep.
Messed up his protections. Snow's using college concepts in the NFL. And I remember talking to Cody Alexander, our friend from Match Quarters, about this a couple of years ago. And he said, someone's going to come into the NFL with college, the Aranda stuff and, you know, whoever else, and is going to really throw a ratchet in the works of a lot of great quarterbacks. I think Phil Snow has done that.
Yeah.
Now they played the least amount of man coverage last season of any team, 13%, but they had a better defensive positive play rate in man than in zone. And they played the second most zone in the league. You bring in JC Horn. JC Horn to me is a man corner. So this could flip a little bit.
Yeah, I don't imagine they play more man. I think they're going to be more confident in some of the younger players they have, whether it's Horn, whether it's Jeremy Chin, who I love. They'll be, you know, they'll play more man coverage, I think. You know, I Snow is fantastic. I mean, I think the bigger story in Carolina, I think that defense is going to be really good. It's Sam Darnold. Like,
who was the least efficient passer under pressure last season, Mark?
I would imagine it was Sam Darnold.
Have you looked at that offensive line?
That's
now, Taylor Moton is plug and play.
Yeah.
Everyone else?
Yeah. I mean, that's
Cam Irving. Those are the guys you bring in.
That's an issue. I mean, I'd expect we see a lot of empty. I'd expect we see a lot of what we saw last year from Joe Burrow, where Zach Taylor, they couldn't protect him, so they went empty until they couldn't play Joe Burrow anymore because of the injury. I'd expect to see a lot of that. Like, a lot of my sort of excitement and optimism about Darnold turning things around is because of Joe Brady. But that offensive line is going to be a potential problem or a problem. Well,
I mean, how does it generally work out when you go 3-step empty all the time because your offensive line is horrid?
Eventually it falls to pieces.
Yeah, because if everyone knows you're going 3-step empty like 70% of the time, well, we can play defense against that. We know what you're doing. And more importantly, we know what you can't do. We know that you're not going to go 7-step or 3-step in pistol. We know how functionally limited your offense is. And Darnold's a guy, work in progress, heavy work in progress mechanically. I you know, can he succeed? We'll see. But that, and it's not, I mean, Jets lose Carl Lawson for the whole season, which is brutal because that was going to, you know, him and with Robert Saleh was going to be incredible. But Saleh will dial stuff up with guys whose names you've never heard. That's who he is. Part of the reason he got the gig as the Jets head coach was, I mean, everyone was hurt on San Francisco's defense last year, and they still played well. That's why Saleh got the gig. So he's going to do that.
And he got the gig also because we had guys like, you know, Richard Sherman coming out and saying, look, you got to hire this guy. Yep. Like, you know, you get votes of confidence like that. And I think Saleh's going to be great. As a Patriots fan, I'm terrified about what this division could look like in the next 3 years, because I think the Jets are going to be a good team. I think Zach Wilson, for all I sort of concerns and hesitation about him pre-draft, this is an ideal situation for him. Elijah Moore is fantastic. They went in on the idea, and we talked about this earlier about, well, he played behind a good offensive line at BYU, so let's get him a good offensive line. You get Becton, you get Vera Tucker on the left side. There's your blind side for the next 10 years. I mean, the Jets are going to be good. It just might not be this year.
Tony Romo had said that he sees Zach Wilson as a future top 3 quarterback compared to him to Mahomes. He doubled down when he talked to me, compared him to Aaron Rodgers, said he just has rare traits. I'm not there, but looked very good in the preseason. He's a perfect fit for. I did the piece on like the 5, this before the draft, the 5 potential number 1 quarterbacks, first round quarterbacks who would be the best fit for Kyle Shanahan. This is after the trade.
Yeah,
they traded up, and I think Trey Lance was second. Zach Wilson was first. I mean, in the LaFleur, McVay, Shanahan, Arthur Smith, we might as well just call it the NFL offense, because everyone's trying to do it.
Right.
20 touchdowns and no interceptions of play action last year, which he was tied with Matt Corral, who we like, with 20 touchdowns through no interceptions. Corral had 8 out of play action. This preseason, Wilson threw completed 15 of 20 passes for 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions of play action. This is the thing. He was my QB2. I liked him more than you did. I think in today's NFL, it's funny, I asked Romo if Wilson was the guy who reminded Romo most of Romo, because to me, Romo was a lot more mobile than people think, but it was, explosive plays out of play action, hit the second read out of boot, be efficient with YOLO throws. And Romo was like, YOLO? He'd never heard of YOLO balls, which was funny because, like, dude, you threw a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean, you started it almost. You could say that.
Yeah. So if you heard Tony Romo say YOLO balls this year, that may be the origin. Jaguars at Texans. Jacksonville's offense is a bit more expansive against the Cowboys in the preseason finale. It started to go to page 2 of the playbook.
Yep.
But I think things are going to, I'm not denigrating Brian Schottenheimer, but I saw him, Darrell Bevell too. They're both from Seattle. When you take a quarterback first overall, you get 2 former Seahawks offensive coordinators. Okay, that's a strategy.
Yeah.
It's going to be deep crossers. It's going to be ISO. It's going to be late breaking stuff. It's, you might have a free release on the wheel, and that's your hot to your backside. You may have a, quick out or a skinny slant, and maybe that's the hot to your front side. But it's going to be either ISO or hot. It's not going to be levels. It's not going to be Bruce Arians. It's not, that's not what this is. It's not going to be Shanahan where you got 4 open guys.
Yeah.
And that's with a bad offensive line. And that's the thing. When you have slow developing plays in a bad offensive line, do the freaking math.
Yeah. That's why the Grinch-sized heart that sits in my chest grew a couple of sizes after that week 3 game against Dallas, because you saw better concepts. You saw some quick game stuff. You saw some design stuff. You saw a smoke screen to Laviska Shenault, which made my heart grow 3 sizes, like I said, because we love Laviska. I'm hoping that's what the offense looks like, but I don't have a lot of reason to be confident in that because of all the stuff you just outlined. This might still look like what we saw week 2 when everybody started to sort of slam that panic button about, Trevor Lawrence behind that offensive line. It's going to be a bad conversation. Now, whatever they do will probably be enough here in week 1 because they're playing the Houston Texans.
And Lovie Smith, and I would imagine, the Texans they played a lot of Tampa too last year. And then they got Lovie, and they're probably going to do it. And they really it didn't go well. And, they don't have functional players. So that's.
Yeah.
I will stay with Tyrod Taylor doing his 3 seasons with the Bills. He threw 13 touchdown passes and just 2 picks when using play action. In 2020, the Jaguars allowed 15 touchdowns against play action. Only the Titans and Cowboys were worse in that department.
It's something.
I'm a squirrel looking for a nut.
Yep.
Browns at Chiefs. No nut looking here because we got all sorts of stuff to talk about. I think the Chiefs are going to look very different offensively this season. That has a lot to do with the gap nature of their offensive line. Start with Creed Humphrey and move all the way out to Orlando Brown Jr. Oklahoma, where Humphrey comes from, very heavy gap. Baltimore, where Brown comes from, obviously the heaviest gap team in the NFL by a crushing margin is the Ravens. And I think you could see a lot of Lincoln Riley concepts where get the defense ready for power, kill them with everything from mesh to all go, levels, backside, all sorts of stuff. Moreover, I think we're sleeping on this defense. And based on what I saw in the preseason, I think this defense could be like top 10.
It could be. The thing that's even scary to think about, we are seeing this trend towards heavier personnel packages, sort of like we talked about earlier in this show. You look at teams that used 12 personnel last year, teams that used 13 personnel. I mean, the other team played in this game, the Cleveland Browns, used 13 personnel, 3 tight ends on, I think it was, I'm looking at it now, 14% of their snaps, and now Kansas City is rolling out what they call their T-Rex package, 14 personnel, 4 tight ends. You're seeing this trend to move towards heavier personnel because it gets you to throw against the 3-4s, the 4-3s of the world. You get teams to sort of go to the traditional base defenses. And
what were we just saying? Run heavy personnel, but spread it out.
Run heavy personnel, spread it out. Now you're forcing linebackers to play in space, which not many are good at. And that's going to be a trend. And so, anytime you give Andy Reid more tools and toys to play with, more things to play with, it's not going to be good for the opposition. Now, at the same time, they're going up against a team in the Cleveland Browns that I'm so high on, and I'm very much out there on it, but whatever. I love what they did. They built their offseason plan around this game. It was, how can we match up against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens? Like, how could we stop those teams? The improvements on the defensive line, the improvements in the secondary, the improvements of all levels of that defense, I think they're going to be good. And look, I know explosive plays is a question for Cleveland, but
that's my only real question for them is where. Yeah, I mean, you gotta count on a healthy Odell. I don't know.
Deontay wrote a piece how teams create explosive plays over PFF this summer. And on outside zone, again, it's small little buckets, so it's not the whole picture, but they were second in the league on explosive plays on outside zone. They were 6th in the league on explosive plays with play action. Like, they're going to manufacture the explosive plays. Is that going to be enough? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think they're going like Kansas City, where if they need to just dial up an explosive play, Tyreek, go deep. Like, they don't have that, but they might be able to manufacture it through scheme.
Well, here's my point. And would it surprise me at all if the Browns were facing either the Chiefs or the Bills in the AFC Championship game? No. But the Bills don't just have the designs for explosive plays. They have the personnel. And it's not just Diggs. God, you look at their slot. It's Emmanuel Sanders and, COVID boy Cole Beasley and the ridiculously underrated Isaiah McKenzie, who had 5 slot touchdowns last year. I mean, with the Browns, I understand the ability to manufacture explosive plays out of scheme, but when you're facing Buffalo to go to the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden you need 3.
Yeah.
That's without the personnel, it becomes exponentially more difficult. The play I was thinking of before we discussed this in run up to the Super Bowl, the 1-by-3 formation that Kansas City runs, which is Kelsey as the ISO, Tyreek Hill inside slot. You remember the play where Kelsey just demolished Denzel Ward?
Yeah.
Denzel Ward's a top 5 cornerback.
Yeah. I mean, that was their Matt Bowen called it the undefensible. Greg Cosell called it the undefensible formation, right? 3-by-1, Tyreek at the 3 on the trip side, Kelsey at the Y ISO. Figure it out. Good luck with that.
Yeah. So they bring in John Johnson, they bring in Troy Hill. I don't know where Delpit is. I know Greg Newsom's going to start. I like Greg Newsom a lot. I mean, I think the Browns are a great team. It's just that the Chiefs, they're going to be better on defense and they're going to be different on offense. And the Bills, it's like Josh Allen. And I don't, that's going to stay put. That's not a 1 year. So you have these teams that are just a little too close to perfect, or if you have any flaws that can be exploited. Now that week 5 game, Kansas City at Buffalo, I believe. That's like, yikes.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying I'm opposed to I think by the way, they're the third youngest team in the league.
It could be good for a while.
Yeah. And obviously their cap situation is about to change when Mr. Mayfield gets his money, but cap's going up and Andrew Berry's a pretty smart guy. So
yeah, they'll figure it out. They'll add some Taysom Hill voidable years on it. They'll figure it out.
Oh God. That's going to be my fantasy team name this year. Taysom Hill voidable years.
I went with Bishop Sycamore. It was such an easy call for a fantasy team name.
It's a layup.
No.
Packers at Saints. We were talking about the quarterbacks you do not want to go single high against. Tom Brady's number 2. Aaron Rodgers is number 1.
Yep.
Last year against single high, including the playoffs, 205 of 299 for 2,496 yards, 1,346 air yards, 29 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Is that good? I think
it's incredibly, and it's for the same reasons we talked about with Brady, the ability to move defenders with their eyes, like the manipulation that matters. You'll hear me talking about it. You'll get sick of it. It's a crutchery, but yeah, the ability to move defenders with your eyes is so critical against those coverages. Those two guys do it so well.
Devontae Adams against single high, 15 touchdowns. Devontae Adams against two high, 2 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers against 2 high coverage last year, 121 of 188 for 1,734 yards, 1,045 air yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. If you run single high against Aaron Rodgers, he will demolish you.
Yep.
If you run too high, and you can, I'm not just saying, oh, run too high and Aaron Rodgers will suck. You have to have the personnel to do it. But if you want to make him mortal, that's pretty much the only way. Now, the Saints ranked 3rd in frequency of 2 high coverage, 56%. They ranked 5th in positive play rate allowed out of it. So that's a fascinating matchup to me.
Yeah. I mean,
I know Sean Payton was like, we need corners. He just traded for Bradley Roby.
Yeah.
I'm not really on the Marshawn Lattimore train at all, but this is going to be, I don't know if it's the game of the week, but it's pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one we just talked about, Chiefs Browns, but this is a good one too. And we get the return of Jameis, which
Jameis
is going to be fun.
And Marquez, holy crap, Callaway. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Blew up the preseason. My observations about Jameis, he had the year in the Sean Payton incubator. So the YOLO stuff is less.
Yeah.
Sean Payton, what I observed in the preseason when he was really good. I remember the 1990. I have the 99 Rams install. So greatest show on turf. That was the year it really blew up. And there's one part where it said, present a favorable picture to the quarterback in advising the receivers. Peyton really did a nice job of having his receivers present a favorable picture for Jameis. And I think that's going to help Jameis a lot, because it will, it's like if his first read is closed, some guys just wither and die. Jameis will be like, okay, my first read is closed. Here comes the howitzer. And that's not any better, because that's how you throw 30 picks. Play action, dominant. He threw 3 touchdowns on, I think both of the big touchdowns we've talked about came off play action. So he's in a good system. He has all the tools to succeed. Not a tremendously mobile guy, but he's got all the tools to succeed. He just needs to believe in the offense as opposed to believing in, the cannon.
Yeah. I mean, I think similar to the Mac Jones concerns you have, which I know we'll probably get to in a minute, I have similar concerns about Jameis. Okay. That game against Jacksonville 2 weeks ago, when the first read was there, like you said, everything's fine. I want to see him make that stick and climb throw under pressure to his second or third read, which I know you don't have to do a ton, but I still need to see him do that.
Packers led the NFL in dime last season under Mike Pettin. We don't know what Joe Barry is going to do, Pettin's replacement, but against dime in 2019, Jameis threw 6 touchdowns and 7 picks. Only Baker Mayfield and Phillip Rivers had more interceptions against dime that season. So I think they have Jair Alexander playing the star and Stokes outside. That's what I've heard. I have no idea what Green Bay's defense is going to look like.
We'll find out.
I don't know. I know Zadarius Smith was hurt last year, so not quite what he was in 2019 when he could have been Defensive Player of the Year. I have Buffalo and Green Bay as my Super Bowl picks. But I say that having faith in the defense being at least league average. And then it's just piss off Aaron Rodgers. You know who else should be pissed off?
Who?
Joe Judge. Because Jason Garrett had better shove himself into 2021 now. He's not doing anything. I mean, the least amount of motion passing plays. And Jason Garrett has said, well, it's because you run tempo. You can have motion and tempo at the same time. Really, it's okay. And really didn't dial a lot of deep stuff up for Jones. And last year, Jones completed 20 of 43 passes of 20 or more air yards for 6 touchdowns, no picks, and a passer rating of 132.5. I'll say it again, 132.5. Highest among any quarterback taking at least 20% of his team snaps. 43 deep attempts tied him for 21st in the league with Gardner Minshew and Jared Goff. Jones was below average in efficiency on every other distance. No touchdowns and 4 interceptions on passes of 10 to 19 air yards. 5 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on passes of 0 to 9 air yards. And behind line of scrimmage, no touchdowns, no picks. It makes sense. But
I've been screaming for a long time that,
and I'm not saying that if you put Daniel Jones in I thought Daniel Jones was the 3rd round talent when he came out of Duke. I've seen nothing to disabuse me of that notion. So if the guy's not special, and I don't think he is, for God's sake, scheme him up.
Yeah. I mean, I've been screaming for a long time, but they should just run 4 verts with him. Because he can handle that play well. He can handle that play extremely well. Everything else is a roll of the dice. The weird thing with him is I think he might be sort of the unicorn in the sense that we talk so much about, see what a guy did in college, build your offense around that at the next level. Duke, he was a 0 to 1 step drop, first read, quick game, RPO. Like that's what Cutcliffe had him do. Mm-hmm. But that's not what he's better at. He's better at the vertical stuff. He's like that rare guy where you want to say, all right, that's great what you did in college. I don't care though. Now you're going to be a Bruce Arians drop back, 7-step drop, throw it deep, 4 verts kind of guy. Like I think he's the rare type of quarterback that might be better doing something that he wasn't doing in college.
Because we talk about quarterbacks all the time. How many times have we said this guy needs to throw deep more often? 95% of the time, it's the inverse. Like, will you stop letting him do that because he just loses his mind?
Jones is that rare breed where maybe you just let him air it out.
And oh, by the way, here comes the Broncos defense, which
could be very good.
Von Miller against Andrew Thomas.
Bradley Chubb is going to be there too.
And Bradley Chubb, I think Nate Solder is starting.
It's looking that way right now.
I think Patrick Surtain is going to be the defensive rookie of the year. And I know everyone wanted them to take Justin Fields. I get it. But Fangio wants very specific things from his defense. He wants an off guy, which is Kyle Fuller, who they signed. He wants a good slot guy, which is Bryce Callahan, top 3 slot corner. On the other side of the off guy, he wants the press guy, and that's Surtain all day. His pick was press and then detach and then read and drop and shove and read that route. Yeah. Denver's going to have at least a top 5 defense. And with Bridgewater not making mistakes and that receiver group, I mean, so the Giants could be in a position where the Giants have a pretty good defense as far as personnel. I think Patrick Graham dialed things up brilliantly for them last year. I will continue to do so. Yeah. But if you're the Giants and you're playing catch up against that defense, I don't know.
Yeah, that could be tough.
We talked about the Browns being the 3rd youngest team. You know, the oldest team in the NFL is it's not the Texans.
I don't know.
It's the Bears. Oops. And here comes Andy Dalton. Haven't had a winning record since 2018. So whatever, bloom Matt Nagy had for, hey, we got to the playoffs with Mitchell Trubisky, that's gone. Here comes Andy Dalton. So we see the offensive line. We know what it is. In the preseason, Justin Fields, who played behind a backup line until the preseason finale against the Titans, which he may have been better with the backups because then Jermaine Ifedi was the starting right tackle and pressured on 29 of his 62 dropbacks, completing 13 of 18 passes for 133 yards, 7.4 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 111.6. That ridiculous sideline throw to Jesper Horsted, the boundary, the touchdown, where he's like, that was his pressure touchdown. Andy Dalton this preseason under pressure. He's completed 3 of 7 passes for 21 yards, 3 yards per attempt, no touchdowns, no interceptions, and a passer rating of 50.3. Oh, Dalton's taken 2 sacks on 23 dropbacks compared to Fields' 3 on 62 dropbacks. And here come the Rams. I got nothing.
Yeah, I got nothing. I mean,
this would seem to tell its own story.
Yeah, you almost feel like this is the punt game.
I mean, you're a quarterback guy. You tell me what I missed. You tell me why Andy Dalton's a better option. Give me one reason.
Survival of Justin Fields.
Okay.
I mean, I think that's all I can come up with. That's all I can come up with is that Nagy doesn't feel, for reasons that we saw in the preseason, he doesn't feel comfortable that Fields can get protection sorted out. And you don't want to walk into that game against Aaron Donald and against that Rams defense if you don't feel your rookie quarterback can protect himself pre-snap with protections. That's all I could come up with.
Yeah.
If you're throwing Andy Dalton to the Wolves. Although I will say, this is what bugs me, and now I'm getting angry. This is what bugs me about Chicago, because everybody has said, look, at some point, Justin Fields has to start. At some point, maybe it's week 4, Detroit. You're hearing reports out of Chicago that, according to insiders, it might not be until late season, like week 16, 17.
What?
That infuriates me. Yeah.
If they go with Andy Dalton until week 15 or 16, with Allen Robinson now moving to the slot and Darnell Mooney is the main outside guy, and that offensive line, maybe Nagy doesn't. Maybe Justin Fields starts in season after Matt Nagy gets fired, and
that could be it.
Some interim guy can take over until they can pay Brian Daboll all kinds of money, which I'd love to see Justin Fields with Brian Daboll. I'm just saying.
Yep.
Bears, man. You finally get a good quarterback, and for the first time since World War II, and you're still screwing it up.
Yep.
I'm interested to see beyond this game, but just Brandon Staley gone. We've talked about Staley a lot. Raheem Morris, more traditional man. Raheem's a smart guy. I imagine he'll adopt some of the Staley concepts, but what I'm of course really interested to see, we didn't see it all in the preseason, Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford.
Yeah. I mean,
here comes the whole playbook.
Here comes the whole playbook.
Stafford historically has not liked motion. He's one of those guys who wants to see it. So, I'm sure they've worked out all the differences, but good Lord, the stuff McVay can do now that he could never do with Goff.
Yeah. And also, look, before I forget, Jordan Rodriguez, the Athletic.
Everybody go read her stuff. She's been spectacular.
She just dropped a piece about like McVay and Staley.
It's so good.
It's incredible. Like, stop what you're doing, put the podcast on pause, come back to it. Of course, you've made it this far, but read this piece. It's so good.
Yep. Good stuff. Ravens at Raiders Monday night game. So the last time we saw the Raiders, they were getting gashed by Kyle Shanahan's version of QB counter bash by way of Trey Lance. Here comes Lamar Jackson. Have fun in the ice cream factory, guys.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I know that there's been this trend to sort of, doubt Lamar Jackson. And I still come back to, again, another Deontay Lee plug. Deontay telling me that if he was having a scheme up against Lamar Jackson, he would never sleep because of all the different things that Lamar Jackson can do. I do think that offense gets static, but if they're a bit more dynamic and diverse, they're going to be good again.
Okay. How did they become static?
In the sense that you could figure out tendencies. Not so much that you knew exactly what was coming, but you could figure out go-tos and tendencies. I think that's how they get static at times. Because,
I get what people are saying when they say that. And I know when Lamar said the offense is, I think I know what he was saying. But then I went to the tape back when Game Pass had player search. This is going to be ugly.
Yeah.
But back when Game Pass had player search, and I watched all Lamar Jackson snaps that season to date, and he had a lot of open hole shots that he just did not see.
Yeah, I mean, he missed some stuff for sure. This is not just a static offense problem. Like, Lamar does need to improve, but I think that's going to happen. So,
because I'm perfectly, I'm perfectly happy to blame the coordinator if it's Brian Schottenheimer or Mike McCarthy or guys that I just don't think are imaginative enough on either side of the ball to survive in today's NFL. I'm perfectly okay saying that. I don't think that's the case with Greg Roman. I think he does very specific things. I think they've always worked. He made Tyrod, when you say it's limited or the tendencies are there, I don't always know what that means when people say it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just more the idea of what we talked about at the start of the show, making everything look the same pre-snap.
Right.
They made everything look the same, but then it was kind of what you expected. Like, I think they need to do a better job of, okay, we've showed you, 12 personnel bunch left, but then we're going to run counter bash off of it. But then you might hit them with something else, a play action concept or something else with that formation. They leaned more heavily into we're going to show you what we've run counter bash out of and just keep running counter bash.
So are they a team you think, and I know that I think about this, it makes sense. They run all that heavy personnel. Should they be one of those heavy spread teams?
I think they'd be smart to do that. Because, you get Lamar into a situation where you can make some quick reads, throws, take advantage of matchups and personnel and things like that. And B, you're forcing the defense to then, do you want to really spread yourself out? Because what's one of the more obvious play calls in all of football, at all levels, down near the goal line? Empty quarterback draw, right? Like, it's like, everybody knows when it's coming. But now you want to go, expose yourself to Lamar's legs by vacating the box because you have to, because of spread formations.
I'm trying to, I don't know. I don't want to spend 5 minutes looking it up, but Lamar in empty the last couple seasons, ridiculous efficiency, because then it was the quick thing that was open here, the quick thing there, 4 and 5 wide, and 2 of those guys were tight ends. 2 of the 5 were tight ends. That's fine.
That's what I'd like to see.
That would be cool. You know what else would be cool, Mark?
What's that?
Henry Ruggs is a deep threat. 4.27 guy. They take him in the first round. You think, oh, he's going to be Cliff Branch. He's going to be, Tim Brown, whoever. Not so much. He was targeted 15 times on passes of 20 or more air yards, catching 5 for 245 yards and 2 touchdowns. Gives you a little indication of what he can do. Nelson Aguilar, now in New England, and Darren Waller had more deep targets. Gruden said in June that Ruggs' lack of a real offseason in his rookie year, combined with COVID complications, made Ruggs more of a decoy to make things happen for the team's other targets. Stop making Ruggs a decoy. That would be the obvious thing.
Yes.
Gus Edwards, I think the Ravens run it. They'll be fine. The Le'Veon Bell signing, I don't get it all, because to me, what I've seen Baltimore's running backs, you got to make that cut quick. And at his peak, what did we always say? Le'Veon Bell's a patient runner. Drink.
Right.
I see why. Okay, he's a guy.
He's a guy.
He's had a career.
He is an NFL football player.
He is an NFL football player. Yes, he is. Yeah. Any other thoughts on week 1, my friend?
Pats Dolphins.
Oh my God, I forgot. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did that. Okay, Pats Dolphins. Well, since I screwed that up, I will hand it over. God, I have my notes right here too.
Mac Jones versus Tua. It's going to be fun to watch. What's going to be more fun to watch
is Mac Jones versus Brian Flores and
Bill Belichick versus Tua. Like that's going to be this is going to be a fun game to watch. See these 2 defensive minds going up against these young quarterbacks. It's going to be a fun game to watch. That's all I got.
Dolphins love to bring zero blitz looks and back into it's like zero blitz pressure, zero blitz drop. They made Jared Goff's head explode like Chicago did in 2018.
Yep.
I don't think Mac's ever really seen that kind of defense. No. I would expect, and it's a lot of it's amoeba fronts, which will mess with your protections. I would expect quick pass RPO. If Mac throws more than 2 passes of 20 or more air yards, I'd be shocked.
I think they're going to scheme some shot plays.
This could be a Ramondre Stevenson game, by the way.
It could be a Ramondre game, although he had a thumb dislocation. That's something we got to monitor.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Where are you with Tua? I thought he looked more comfortable. He's never going to be he's never going to throw 50 deep passes.
He looked better this preseason than I'd say he did last year. There were moments this preseason where you saw him make an aggressive, anticipatory throws that he passed on a year ago. So I think he's better.
And that he's a timing and rhythm guy. He's not a cut it loose guy. So that stuff has to be there.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic about where Tua is headed. I think Waddle is going to be a huge part of their offense. He might struggle this week because it's Bill Belichick, but I think that Tua is going to be better this year. And I think he's going to sort of live up to some of the hype he's gotten.
Who's starting opposite JC Jackson?
Jalen Mills, it looks like.
Yeah.
Cornerback depth is an issue with Gilmore on pop. When you have to go out and trade for Sean Wade, who, by the way, went from this guy's a first-round draft pick to a 5th-round guy that gets traded before his first NFL season starts, but you have to go out and trade for that player. Like, it's a problem. Like, Jonathan Jones should be back. He's a very good slot player. We know Belichick likes to play matchups. Like, they'll do some different things. You might see, because of how comfortable they've gotten with Kyle Duggar playing that single high look, you might see Devin McCourty down playing some corner. Like, he has the cornerback background.
Oh, yeah.
Belichick's done that before. He said, look, Devin, like, you got to play corner this week. So you might see, Devin McCourty. Like, it's always and so
McCourty's much. If you need deep third, that's where you put McCourty back there. If you don't, and you really don't against Tua per se, that might make sense.
It's always fun to sort of play matchups with New England and try to predict what Belichick's going to do. You might see J.C. Jackson on Parker. You might see Devin McCourty on Mac Hollins, and then Jonathan Jones on either Waddle or Albert Smith, the like shifty slot type option. Like, that's how Belichick might play this game.
So they single Parker and is Waddle the number 2? They double the number 2, that thing they do.
Yeah, I don't think this is the week that they do that. I mean, maybe
or is it alpha on alpha? You just put Jackson on.
Yeah, I kind of think that's how they play it.
Here's another matchup to watch: Miami's offensive line versus Matthew Judon, who tore it up. That looks very much like the latest Belichick.
Yeah,
Judon was good in Baltimore. Holy crap. He was an animal, just like every other defensive play was him.
Yeah, and that left tackle spot in Miami is a disaster right now. It is rare that our friend, the brilliant Brandon Thorne, puts together a low light package of an offensive line player, but he put one together on Austin Jackson with just like 3 exclamation points. Now Jackson's got COVID, so then it might be Greg Little, but either way, I like Miami's interior. I like what they put on the interior offensive line. Left tackle is an issue. And now with Tua, a left-handed quarterback, it's not like critical, it's not his blind side, but it's still pretty darn important, Doug. Yeah. And that might be an issue. And I can just imagine that on the whiteboard in, what was Ernie Adams' office, now maybe Steve Belichick's office, they've just got that left tackle spot on the whiteboard, just like circled in red with like Judon, Uche, and Kyle Van Noy just like hovering over it.
Uche's kind of coming on too, isn't he?
Yeah. Patriots defense is going to have a good pass rush. The hope was you'd have then Gilmore and JC Jackson in a secondary to pair with that we're not going to see right away.
And JC Jackson, we're going to find this out. We found it out a bit last year when Gilmore was hurt. JC Jackson would be a CB1 on like 25 teams.
Exactly.
So cool, Matt. Well, my apologies for forgetting the game you most wanted to talk about.
It's
week 1 for everybody.
It's week 1 for everybody. We're all knocking off the rust.
I have to go leave and turn off the TV and, chickens and God, whatever. Anyway, we're working out the kinks.
That we are.
All right, man. Good stuff. And we'll talk next week.
Sounds good, my friend.